Okay, you want to get ready? Yeah. All right. All right. Oh, I know it. I know it. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for coming today. Welcome to day 2 of St. Louis Design Week. I'm Arlene Memento Brown, and some of you may know that I wear a lot of different hats, but today I'm representing the executive board of STL.org. We're so proud to be hosting St. Louis Design Week and have fully integrated this week into our goal to amplify the creativity and talent of the St. Louis community. Through our digital storytelling and educational initiatives, we strive to showcase and support the rich tapestry of talent and community spirit that defines our city. Let's just say STL.org is a passion project for passion projects. And today, we are going to talk about bringing physical spaces to life digitally. It's an art. How can we make real-world locations come alive through digital media? Let me introduce you to this incredible panel of experts. I'm going to start with you, Cab, even though you're my second on my list. It should be you. It should be. Cabiny Howard. She's the CEO of Kaleidoscope Management Group. Cabiny is a strategic marketing and communications professional who values relationships and results in equal measure. Over a decade, she has built Kaleidoscope Management Group into a leading digital marketing and business consulting firm, whose clients range from mid-sized private businesses to Fortune 100 companies in the real estate, healthcare, and hospitality industries. KMG is an employer Cabiny says she would have liked to work for when she was first starting out. By this, she means a place where happiness and high performance can coexist. Cabiny earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Pennsylvania. She is very active in the arts and the St. Louis community. She recently founded Chakra Wellness, a St. Louis-based wellness center offering holistic Eastern wellness services to enhance mindfulness and well-being. Welcome, Cabiny.
Thank you guys all for being here. We had fun.
And now I'd like to introduce Cabiny is a dear friend of mine, but so is Sarah. Sarah Hentz is the founder of Eris LLC and Temple and Hentz. She is a real estate and design expert, and I can tell you she is because I got to work with her in the past, and she's fantastic. Sarah has built a specialty real estate leasing and consulting practice based on her more than 2 decades of experience in the real estate development world. She specializes in retail representation, site and store development, specialty leasing, interior design, and construction management. Sarah earned her bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of Kansas. Over the course of her career, she has built an extensive network of relationships in the real estate space with prominent national retailers, Blue Mercury, AG Jeans, Lululemon, Kendra Scott, Bonobos, Suit Supply, among others. In addition to her leasing capabilities, Sarah has a cutting-edge, highly sought-after residential interior design practice, Temple and Hentz. Welcome, Sarah. And now I'd like to introduce Amy Berger. I don't know if I have known her for a long time, and she's an incredible media relations consultant and journalist. Amy is a seasoned strategic communications professional and copywriter with nearly 20 years of experience working in the St. Louis market. She has worked in a variety of sectors, including nonprofit and corporate, and helps clients of all sizes achieve their strategic communication goals. Amy has strong relationships with members of the local media across all formats. She is also a freelance journalist who contributes to several local and regional publications. Amy earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Missouri-Columbia and a master's degree in media communications from Webster University. Welcome, Amy Berger. And last but certainly not the least, Lori Dowd. Lori is the founder and executive producer of StoryTrack. Lori Dowd is the visionary force behind StoryTrack. With over 20 years in the industry, she's collaborated with a vast array of clients and networks, including PBS, ABC, History Channel, HGTV, and Food Network. In 2012, Lori embarked upon a bold mission to redefine the meaning of video marketing. With singular vision and expertise, she tells her story to the world in unparalleled style. Lori has collaborated with a wide range of large corporate clients, including BASF, Rockefeller Group, Ford Motor Company, American Association for Thoracic Surgery, to name a few. Today, she's pushing the video content envelope for StoryTrack's global portfolio of clients. Welcome, Lori. Okay, so let's get started. Are you all ready?
So ready.
Okay.
We want it to be a discussion too, so we're going to get to the panel discussion and open it up.
So my very first question is for all of you. In your own words, how do you define bringing physical spaces to life digitally? What does this concept mean to you?
Can you hear me? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Arlene. Those were really, I think, illustrative of the blend of the panel that we put together today. And I think that when I started thinking of what we could talk about when invited, thank you, STL Design Week. This is such a vibrant week of programming. We came up with this topic because we've all had the chance to work together in some capacity around helping bring physical spaces to life. One of the things that I thought about when we first got prepared today was, if anybody has their phone, I know normally during the panel, let's put it away, silence it, all the things, but we are digital marketers after all. So if you have your phone and it's easily accessible, I thought that one of the ways I could define this was looking at an account like the park services. We've all been to a national park, I assume, but it doesn't give glamour. It doesn't give sexy. It doesn't give super sparkly, but I love how they're showing up online. And so to me, it was like one of the best examples as we started preparing. We've got some other examples of work that we've done to bring spaces and places to life digitally. And I thought that this one post was so cute from the National Park Service. They have 6 million followers. So if you're thinking about going to a park or you've never been and you want to kind of get a flair or a feel for the parks, what a great way to start trolling their photos and start to make it feel a little bit more personal, a little bit more fun. So this, yeah, I'm into fitness, whole salmon in my mouth. Do you like to eat? Do you like to sleep? Do you need to gain weight by the end of summer? And they go on, but it's so funny and it's lighthearted. And all of a sudden, something that might be a little bit more traditional, staid, boring for non-natural enthusiasts might bring a whole new audience into a park in a given summer. So I just love that example. And then even locally, our own St. Louis Art Museum, and we do quite a bit of museum work, bringing places to life digitally, I thought was best summed up by some of the stuff St. Louis Art Museum did over the summer. Like, okay, if you heard of Brat Summer, they jumped on trends, and people who might not have seen themselves as museum goers, they're clearly leaning into their digital presence, and they're starting to try and appeal to new audiences without completely ostracizing. Maybe they're more tried and true, older, wealthier audiences, and starting to invest in art lovers of the future. So bringing places to life digitally for me is multifaceted. I don't have one definition, but I wanted to just kind of articulate through these two examples of two really good ones that I thought might help bring the topic to life as we think about it today and as we discuss it, and hopefully leave today with a few more ways of your own definition of how you can bring places to life digitally. So. You have to hold it. Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. I could bring.
Sing song. So, we see, I, over the years, work with different national clients, and basically, the goal was always to drive the traffic to this space or attract people to this space. I spent years
using some social media and events to drive traffic, or doing an online podcast to show product. And you can maybe buy a few things online, but in order to come in and get the prized one or two other things, you had to come into the space. So my sort of take on the use of digital or social media for as a retailer is
Hello. That work? Okay. For me, I guess I'm a journalist and a media relations specialist. I'm kind of working again with those media stories, and traditional media now is digital. Most people get their traditional media online, whether it's stlmag.com or STL Today or whatever that is. So for me, as both a writer and a public relations specialist, I'm trying to kind of marry the words as a storyteller and a writer with great photos to create and really tell a story that is going to, make people feel like they are in a place, but also entice them to make a journey to go to that place. I work with Kranzberg Arts Foundation down here in Grand Center, and they have a lot of vibrant spaces such as the Walls off Washington, which you see here. So again, this is a very visual space. We want to have photos, but we also want to tell the story of like, what is this? Who are these people? Who are these artists? Why is it important for you to come see this really unique project? And so, again, it's just kind of telling that longer story in a digital format for me.
Hey, is it working? Okay, cool. So great question, Arlene. How do we define bringing, spaces to life digitally? For us, it's always media, whether that's film, video, AR, VR. We've collaborated with KMG to bring social into the mix, but it's oftentimes for us dealing with the unbuilt world, actually. So just empty space that is already being re-envisioned. Our clients are generally developers, and we help their audiences, brokers, potential tenants, to see that space with a lot of times creating that sensation. I think CAB has a sample up here. This was TSX Broadway. TSX Broadway was a repurposed building at the corner of Broadway and 47th Street, hey Tom Petrie, right in Manhattan. And it was right over the Times Square, the Red Stage. It was a very complicated project. They had to raise a historic theater, landmark theater, 30 feet into the air. Never been done before. Everyone was like, oh my God, it can't be done. Well, they did it, and creating the story around that, we created a mini documentary, and my colleague Steve Harris is here, who helped create that. Really engaged everybody because nobody knew what was happening. They were upset that the Palace Theater was being changed in some way. So we helped them understand. And I think that for us, that visualizing those spaces is always about understanding. So why are we doing this? We're doing this. We didn't say this necessarily in the doc piece, but it was to make room for retail on the ground level, as well as they were jutting a stage out over Times Square. So we created multiple forms of media over the course of 2 years to engage those audiences that were both New Yorkers who didn't really want to go to Times Square, but we helped them do that. Thank you so much, Tucker. And we also helped audiences who were not from Manhattan to really get excited about the possibility of seeing performances out over Times Square.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, Cap, I have another question for you. From a strategic management perspective, how has the convergence of digital and physical spaces changed your approach to marketing real-world locations?
Great question. I think for us, the whole way our company grew over the last 10 years was thanks to people like Sarah who were in the leasing world, and they were meeting with developers who were traditionally very traditional, and they would say, just stick a leasing sign in the grass and hope someone calls. And over the course of the last 10 years, we've really benefited from developers who are more visionary, very growth oriented. And they said, hey, people aren't calling on signs anymore. And there would Sarah be to tell them, hey, there's a lot of stuff you could be doing to actually reach people who are sitting on their couch scrolling and looking for a place to maybe hang their shingle. And so over the course of our company's trajectory, the way that it's changed our business and just the way I've seen marketing over the last really 5 years. Like in the pandemic, we really leaned into it because we were getting curbside pickups at retailers. Like a lot of my developer clients who took a chance on investing in social media, some of them would even say to me, I'm doing this because Sarah told me, but I don't even believe in this. And then they go, whoa, the power to reach people at scale was so much more than they had originally imagined. And so we've been involved with a lot of our clients 5, 6, 7 years where they now see the value. They see how we can use digital to drive people to the mixed use centers. I think I had just a visual punctuation of like, we start a farmer's market, bring your dog, you don't just come here to buy something and leave, creating that experience that Sarah talked about. So it's changed marketing for us completely, because in the time frame of the pandemic, we were still doing pretty traditional marketing. We were buying ads in newspapers, and I said, let's be done with that. We're going to lean all in on digital. And that's been a bet that's been very beneficial to our company. And we're grateful because when our clients ask us, how are you doing? What's the value? Show me the results. We're able, through some really sophisticated technology that's kind of come online at the same time we've done our work, to say, hey, your foot traffic's up 20% since you hired us. Any questions? Invoices in the inbox. So I feel like we've really benefited going on the coattails of, we're marketers that help you market your space, and we can prove that that has very tangible results. So mixed use shopping centers is probably the best example. We help healthcare, we help hotels, and a lot of those same principles apply to those two industries as well. And it's part of why we've really leaned into those. But I would say just specifically shopping centers have been really beneficial for us in that sense. So.
Yeah, and we're talking about shopping centers and retail spaces. And I know, Sarah, you've had so much experience with that. What concepts have you found to be most effective in increasing foot traffic to retail spaces or generate leasing activity? Could you share some examples of that? You did an incredible job there in Maryland Plaza, and I mean all the A-list parties, and I mean, Sarah, you really did fantastic work there. Now, Amy, as a media relations expert, what role does earned media play in amplifying the presence of physical locations like the Pulitzer or like Kranzberg?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing about earned media is just that it is earned. It's not something you're paying for. It's not an advertisement. So it's that third party endorsement of getting a publication to write about your space, whether that be, again, like a space like the Pulitzer or the Walls or any of the Kranzberg venues or even an event. I did work for Circus Flora for a couple years. So that is an event, but it's a place that's very visual and you want to kind of get people sucked into that. So having that sort of third party endorsement of, St. Louis Magazine saying this is, one of the top 10 things to do this month. And this is a profile I just saw on Show Me St. Louis, or this is something that I've seen in the Post-Dispatch, lends it a little credibility that it's not just coming from that organization. And then it also adds, and I work with Cabiny and her team on the Pulitzer and some other clients. So when we get a great article about an exhibition happening at the Pulitzer, then Cabiny and her team take that article and share it on social, and that creates another loop of digital content to share that, again, has that credibility of like, yeah, we've been telling you this is great, but also now this, third party is telling you that it's great. And I also think, again, kind of speaking to what I said before, is it's a little more long form as opposed to, a social post, which you have a pretty limited amount of space to get something out, where either when I'm writing an article or placing an article or story, you have a little more of an in-depth view of that thing, from that storytelling, from that writing, and that perfect marriage of words and pictures. I mean, pictures are definitely worth 1,000 words, as they say, but you kind of have to have both. And that's something that I always really stress with people and that I work with as far as trying to do public relations, particularly around a space, is you've got to have good pictures, because I can write the best press release or story about it, but you've got to have the picture that goes with that. So the words are telling you the story, and then you also have that visual to go with it.
I completely agree. And oh, by the way, and I just this tiny plug, because when you were talking about the 10 greatest things to do in St. Louis Magazine, I mean, St. Louis Design Week was one of those this month, and we are so thankful. So thankful.
70 things to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, let's go back to Lori. Yeah. Lori, video content has become a powerful tool for digital engagement. Can you share a story of how a well-crafted video transformed the perception or visibility of a physical space?
Yes. And since we're also at Design Week, I want to also talk about design and how that works as well in it. And I'll give it a kind of a boring example, right? Industrial space. Like when I first started working in industrial space, I was like, they're tearing up farmland. I was really opposed to it. And then my client looked at me and said, "Are you buying on Amazon?" And I said, "Yes." So we had to create a pitch video for the Rockefeller Group. And they had these new sites in New Jersey. One of the first calls we made was to a designer. And that designer came up with color palette, naming, graphics that went in the pitch booklet. And ultimately, we took all of those assets and created the video then that was our client said it was the number one marketing tool that they had, because all of a sudden we could make that space come alive for people no matter where they were in the country. And that was a combination of all of that visual material, the branding, the colors, the type. And then the other thing that I was thinking about on the way over here is sound. Sound so oftentimes helps us drive the experience of a film, right? And like, I'm totally obsessed with Francis and the Lights right now, because why? I saw it on a TV program that I was watching, and I was like, oh my God, who is this? I love them. And I was, so getting that right sound is really important. And we'll oftentimes give our clients a couple of things to listen to, but we only give them things that we like, because you don't want to give them something that is a bunch of strings, it's not going to move the needle for you. So, I think that kind of that visual representation really helped lease that building, faster, which is what your goal is for your client. But for us as creators, it has legs into the future. We just got a call, I don't know, a couple years later from an Indian reservation in Phoenix. And they had seen this video that we did for the Rockefeller Group years ago through a broker, and they tracked us down because they remembered what it looked like. And for us, it's always about what do we make people feel, right? Do they feel good after watching it? Do they feel inspired? We want them to feel something. I remember as a student, and then I'll be done. Like I was presenting an early film, and there was zero reaction in the audience. And I knew at that time that was the worst. Way worse than a negative reaction was no reaction. You want to get your audiences as designers, as creators, as marketers to feel something.
Yeah, that's great advice. Great advice. Okay, this question is for all of you. What are some of the biggest challenges in translating the essence of the physical space into digital form? And how do you overcome these challenges?
Vernon to answer. I can go first. I think that for at least a firm like ours, we talk a lot as a team. Yay, Kaleidoscope. They represent today. How do you bring these spaces to life when you're not local? You want to give the sense, if you're a marketer, that you're right there on the property, near the reservation. And so anything we do, we try and really think through the lens of what is a local person going to think, see, feel about this post today. So for instance, it's something so basic, but if we're trying to bring to life a Sunday at a center and we're talking about what a beautiful day for yoga and there's a storm coming in, or how much tone deaf has there been out there on the internet about, these hurricanes where it's I'm packing for Disney and then they get completely canceled because they didn't realize that there's a hurricane about to blow through. So we just try to be as sensitive as we can, especially when we're representing clients outside of St. Louis, that we're speaking from the point of view that I want the followers and the viewers to believe, or at least give the impression or the illusion that we are local. And so you just have to be a little bit extra sensitive when coming up with content, when looking through the lens of what would someone down the street think about you promoting yoga on a blustery day. Just say, check back in an hour. We're watching the weather too. So I think that's just a small example of how we think on the daily to try to make sure that everything we do, everything we put out there, doesn't give some impression of some St. Louis-based marketing agency, planning content for the next 3 months, because your followers are so smart. They're going to see right through that. And I've definitely followed accounts where that's what they've done is just stick an agency on it and they set it and forget it. And so we really work hard to overcome that potential challenge. That's just one. There's many challenges, but that one comes to mind specifically as it relates to trying to bring a physical space to life and make somebody think, I'm going to get off my couch and stop scrolling and actually go spend money at that restaurant, retailer, movie theater, or what have you.
What was it?
I know, right? I talked so long, I forgot the question.
Challenges to bring. Yes, that was it. I guess more for me on a local retailer sense would be, what entices someone to come in? Is the environment pretty? Is there some reason that I can't just buy it online? Are you doing Blue Mercury does every, fourth Sunday, or they used to, you can come in for a 30-minute facial. You can't do that online. So reaching out and trying to create reasons to come in would be my take on that. So.
Okay. I think for me, both as a journalist and a PR person, I'm going to go back to the thing about having good images and photos. It's sometimes my biggest challenge with clients, because I often am working with something that's new. Maybe it's a new venue that's opening, a new restaurant that's opening, a new space, or a new production, or whatever that is. And so they don't always have them. And people often want to put that cart before the horse of, well, we got this, get this press release out. We've got to get this news out, but they don't have images to go with it. As a PR professional, if I send a press release out, the very first thing that I'm going to get back from our reporters, great, where do you have photos for this? Because they're not going to run it. You know, you see our local media, they're not going to run a story on St. Louis Magazine without a picture. They're not going to run a story in the Post without pictures. And as a journalist, when I'm writing stories, same thing. I have to go to those people and say, hey, what kind of photos do you have? What kind of images? So it's just something I always really try to stress for clients that are doing media relations of any kind is really having those good photos ready to go before you pushing out news. And if you don't have, if you have a space, which again, this is a challenge when you're developing new spaces, because you know, maybe it's still under construction until the very last moment. But, you know, renderings are great in that case. And, you know, even media will be happy to take architect renderings if you have that. But there has to be some kind of imagery. And I think people kind of not forget about it, but it's just kind of last on the list of many things to do to get something done and open. But it really needs to be kind of something that is put in the queue of like, let's get some good professional photos, you know, even if it's just a small handful that can be used for that kind of earned media marketing.
I think that one of the challenges for us is how do we make it human, right? How do we make it feel like this isn't a space that's coming, but it's a space that's already accessible. And so oftentimes we will cast talent, you know, and I'm sure you all are familiar with doing that, right? Because in spaces, you also want to show scale. You want to show connectivity always with spaces. People want to know location, location, location. So how do we show that location in a way that's interesting? Not like some of those maps that you see, the Google Earth maps that zoom down and then you see all, oh, Best Buy, you know, World Market. It's boring, right? You have to think about how can we create these spaces visually that are interesting. And sometimes you don't have video assets or photographic assets and you're then manufacturing them. But I think that's the fun part of the challenge, you know, is how do we make these spaces feel human, feel like they're a place to connect, feel like they're adjacent to other things that are happening. And I got to give a special shout out to Tucker here. When Tucker was working on this TSX Broadway program, there was not a single person in our developer's office who recognized that we were a St. Louis company. They absolutely thought we were on the ground in New York City. And the reason is because Tucker was consistently trolling for images and events and ways to bring that alive, because we didn't have a photographer on the ground all the time. We had these moments when we'd send somebody out, you know, or we'd be there filming for it. But you just had that consistency that really was amazing. So thank you.
That is so spot on. I will add one thing to the sleuthing aspect. It is a huge piece of anyone's business if they can do that extra layer of sleuth. Tucker absolutely overcame the challenge that I identified earlier, you know, like time lapses of Stonehenge that she would find on someone else's account, credit them, but then we could use them to show like, see the view down the street, you know, and it was so unbelievable because it did give the illusion that we were just based right there. And for Sarah, I just would add that from a residential perspective, we've talked a lot about commercial because that's where KMG does the majority of our work. But I'm so excited because the technology that we're all in the midst of experiencing, using, looking at, she builds these amazingly beautiful custom homes in Marco Island. One of them actually had like a line of offers on them before they actually saw the physical space. And to me, that's like one of the most shining examples because we have virtual tours or, you know, we have photography that now allows us to do things that beforehand, I don't think even 15 years ago, anyone would have thought of buying a home sight unseen. But because of the technology and because of the virtual walkthroughs, even residential real estate has gotten such a bump from that if you can get good photography. Now, there are parody accounts that say, like, here's how not to shoot your home. So you can also have that backfire. You list 20 photos, and if they're ugly, you're not going to probably sell that thing. But if you use the technology to your advantage, I think the sky is the limit. So that one struck me because we've talked so much about commercial, and you've got great examples of using the technology and overcoming some of the challenges that you would potentially have for some of these projects.
I'm going to actually ask you another question, Sarah. What are some common misconceptions about how developers think about marketing their property? What do property owners or managers often overlook when formulating a leasing strategy?
I think a lot of them just rely on the traditional print package and sending that out. And, you know, it could be pretty, but to Lori's commentary, when we started being able to bring things to life and put that client in a center or in a space, or that really helped sell the space and entice the retailer to come. I think a lot of developers are old school. They don't necessarily want to spend the money, and they'll just, same thing as a real estate agent, they often just hang their sign and hope they're going to come. I've never operated like that, and I try to align myself with retailers that don't operate like that and developers. But a lot of them are old school. They're older, and it's not what they're used to. But being able to use social media, TikTok, all these things to explain the area, the development, what you're creating, and painting the picture for people, I think is a big part of the future.
That's great. I'm going to go on to Lori again. With so many digital tools available, from social media to immersive AR experiences, how do you decide which channels to use when promoting a space? And what is your process for creating a cohesive digital experience?
I don't think I'm the expert on that. I think that we often collaborate with people who are the experts. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with a lot of the technologies like a Matterport. You're definitely familiar with AR and VR, and that's only getting more sophisticated, right? There was an announcement just recently about what Meta's doing now with their AR. So we're going to be able to put you right in that space. And we already are with something like a Matterport, but I don't particularly find that engaging because like it's just as clumsy. It's not enticing. I think as visual artists, it's about creating also that sense, you know, what is going to entice somebody. So in terms of making the whole package, certainly for us, what we've done a lot with the Rockefeller Group is it definitely starts with that brand. I mean, it really does. So it starts with, you know, what is the name of the place? What is it going to feel like? What does the marketing center look like? And oftentimes the marketing centers are, I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but they'll have lots of different engagements, ways to engage. You could have an interactive map. One of the things we're doing right now in terms of making spaces sort of digital is that there's a space in a new building that we're part of where we're collaborating with a firm called Soso. And Soso is an amazing digital company that is able to take all kinds of information, pull it in on the servers, put it up digitally, and then we create the customized experience that is part of that. But it will be an entire room that's all video screens, you know, so you can, it's not totally interactive. They're not touch screens, but it's a way for you to really get access and look at projects in depth. So I think that there's so much happening right now in terms of our ability to bring technologies to the table. That's one of the things I'm most excited about in this particular area. But how do we use it? How do we use those tools? How do we make it totally engaging for our viewers wherever they are?
Well, that's the thing that you're most excited about. That sounds great. No, it's wonderful. Amy, what about you? Like, what is it most exciting for you in terms of working with your clients, the media, and what people should expect from you?
I mean, I'm a little more. Media and partnering with great other marketers who can help deal with the social side of that. To me, it's just like how it all works together is it's like an ecosystem. And I don't think when you're in marketing and design that one thing it has to all be cohesive. So, you have to have your PR working with your social, working with your paid advertising and all those things together. And having all these different ways to do that now is exciting.
I'm a big fan of your writing.
Oh, thank you.
A really big fan. And can you talk about your approach to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, I actually write about design. So I write for the design section of St. Louis Magazine. I write for the Post-Dispatch about homes and interior design. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think, and then I'm working with a lot of clients on the PR side that are places that I'm trying to tell their story through press, articles and releases and things. And I don't know, I just really am trying, I think, most of the time to paint a picture to go with the pictures, knowing that there will be photos, that's great. But I also want to try to paint a picture of a space with the words as well. Because the pictures are great and they do suck you in, but it's also, I think, the descriptive language and trying to entice people to, again, take action, whether it's to visit that new store or come to that production or go to this venue, that kind of has to work together. So, and even when it comes down, like with the Post, when I write, well, St. Louis Magazine too, I write the captions as well that go with the pictures.
Yeah.
So, it kind of has to go hand in hand, the words and the photos, I think,
Just very unique
to create
storytelling.
a full visual.
Okay, this is for all of you. As technology evolves, what trends do you see emerging in the intersection of digital and physical spaces? How can businesses stay ahead of these trends to continue drawing people to real world locations?
I think that it's a piggyback on what you guys said is sometimes there's so much out there, and being in the marketing field, it's so dynamic, and that can actually be great, but it's also overwhelming. And so even Meta will roll trends out and it's like, hey, hold on, let's see how this thing goes before they sunset it, And so we're very cautious to say, like, sounds interesting, but before we go and invest in all of it, let's give it a little bit of time to percolate, because they don't all end up being great tools or have really great user interface. So I think as far as like trends for our clients, sometimes we'll meet a developer and we'll go, we're probably not a good fit for you. We might be too much muscle. You might not even need marketing. Like there have been times where, let's say like a strip mall, you've got a T-Mobile, a Chipotle, and a something. It's like, we want you to do our social media. You kind of have to ask yourself, like, love the business, we always want more, but are we going to be the person that comes in and is able to say, like, oh my gosh, we've got this great Reels strategy for you, or let me introduce you to our partner Lori and StoryTrack. It's like, we like to have kind of full service experiences with our clients where we feel like we can add value. And so for real estate in general, I think looking at it and saying, what tools do we need and which ones do we not need? It's as much important to be reductive as it is to add, because if resources were finite, we'd be like, be on all the channels, do all the things. But I've yet to meet a business that says that's the case, right? So a lot of times we'll have a developer who might talk to their niece and go, hey, we should be on TikTok. And you kind of go like, okay, why? And they have no clue how much time it takes, and they just think it's the next best thing, and they have nobody to support it, and they're not even trying to appeal to the consumer, where TikTok is all about, getting the eyeballs of the direct to consumer. So if you're B2B, maybe TikTok is good for you, but I think asking all those questions every time you come into building a strategy and deciding, to your question, which trends are we going to bite off on and which ones are sort of like, cool, glad I know about it, but I don't necessarily need to try to sell it to my client. Or even, I say all the time, Kaleidoscope is a great guinea pig for us. Like, we can always try trends on ourselves, and if they feel clunky or don't have value, then we sort of say, okay, we've tried it and we don't need to recommend it or embrace it. So that would be my answer to the which trends and what goes into deciding on trends for marketing for our clients and for ourselves.
Yeah, I don't deal with side of things. I will say, just on the visual side, again, when I'm working with clients, one thing I do really love that I guess it's not so trendy, but drone photography I think is really cool, and just such a addition to like the traditional static type of photos that you can get, even when they're still photos, just the angles. And like the walls off Washington, which is just right down the street. If you haven't been, very cool. Go check it out. That was something we definitely used with that. I mean, this is like a block long mural walk thing, and like to try to take a picture of it or just even a few. I mean, we have pictures of the individual murals, but that doesn't really give you a sense of that space and how it connects. And so taking a drone up and flying it through that space like created this really great image. We even did that with Circus Flora, which sounds weird, but we had a drone fly through the tent and up around the tent. And, you know, you can just kind of capture, I think, a little more with some of that stuff. And that's a really cool technology that, you know, I recommend if you can do it. Most photographers that you hire now can do that. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to try and wrap this up and get a few takeaways, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. From all of you, what is a piece of advice that you want to give to business owners looking to make their physical locations more visible and engaging through digital media? Just one. One piece of advice. What's the best piece of advice?
I would say to connect your product and what you offer in store, how to drive them in by using some experience. Again, like I hear from retailers, people who shop, they want it to be easy to navigate. They want staff to be friendly and knowledgeable. Those are the reasons we all still go into shops. You know, secretly, we kind of want to have a connection with somebody. We appreciate it when the lady from Athleta calls and says, hey, we have your pants in. Trying to encourage people to still, there's a reason to still have that contact in store would be what I would promote.
Great. While you percolate, I've got one if you're still thinking. So I'm going to call out Drew. So the wellness center that Arlene referenced earlier, it's in the Grove. Quick shout out for Chakra Wellness. And it's a place for, we call it our urban sanctuary. It's a place for people to go and get like a tiny little microdose of wellness, mindfulness, centeredness at a time where I feel like, you know, the world just gets increasingly more busy and overwhelming. Chakra is a place for stillness. And I've loved watching Drew, the director of Chakra, bring the space to life in a way that brings some humanness to it. So of course our Instagram has a lot of like, you know, helpful quotes and, you know, beautiful ways to ground. But I think occasionally as a business owner, you know, making it human, showing that there's a face behind it. Because I think the world has become so commoditized that I'm seeing a swing back to like wanting to know the person behind it or wanting to go and maybe spend a little extra on that candle. Even if I could get it on Amazon, I had a chat, to your point, I had a chat with the person and maybe I left feeling a little bit more connected. And so any business owner thinking about how to bring their brand to life more effectively online is be human, be yourself. Don't be afraid to make that video or do that live, which does require you to get a little bit, I'm sure for some, outside your comfort zone, but it really helps. And I think the consumer, we've definitely seen this at the Wellness Center, responds so positively to that. And we know the algorithm responds positively to all that motion and video and reels and lives. So double bonus there.
Pass it to Lori. She might have one.
So
No
a
pressure.
takeaway, I just, I love this, be a nice human, be kind to the environment, enjoy art. I think it's that authenticity, no matter what you do, it's really being yourself. And so every space requires a different kind of approach. And it's being attentive to what that approach may want to become. And I love the challenge of whether it's a big box or a smaller space. What is it about that makes it unique? Yeah.
I like it.
I really probably one more question, and I know that you all either own your own businesses or you represent a business, and I'm sure each of you are online in some ways, shape or form, digitally, social media. How do you show up online? How do you become like an extension of your business.
I got to give a quick shout out. Steve Harris started a podcast for StoryTrack. I did not want to do this podcast. I thought it was going to be a money suck. And maybe it is, but we just launched our first episode today and I'm so stoked. So how do we show up online? And it's called Building Stories, right? It is a play. At first we were going to call it Deconstructing Construction because we do a lot of construction work, but he made it Building Stories, and he's interviewing really interesting people about the problems that they have and how they solve those problems. So I'm learning stuff just by listening to this podcast. So Building Stories, a little shout out. Thank you, Steve Harris.
Can't wait to listen.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an independent, contractor, freelance journalist. So, I mean, I share when I write something. I like to share things on behalf of my clients, events that I'm working on, and I'm kind of a serial networker. I like to talk to people, meet people, gather friends, and so I guess that's kind of how
I look
do
to
it.
Amy's social to see what music I need to be seeing. Live music in St. Louis. She's the go-to when you post about that.
What is your favorite?
What?
Your favorite platform?
I mean, I'm probably Facebook and Instagram are probably what I'm on because I'm old. So, yeah, I'm not with the kids on TikTok.
No, me either. I don't know how to do TikTok. I primarily also am a sole owner. I do have a partner in the design business. I would say we market ourselves through Instagram, post some of our projects. I probably need to be better at that, but I like to get out and about and talk with people, and kind of that's more my feeling of success than social media. But I do understand the value of having that, because people are visual and they love to see projects. They love to see what you've done, who you represented, or on the design side, what you've created. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and obviously have a website that we constantly update. So, yeah, which is beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, Drew.
Yes.
I'm probably like the cobbler with the not great shoes, where we're out there selling social media services, but we too have been fortunate to grow by word of mouth. So we do post, and some of my team members have just done some beautiful case study work for us. We love Instagram. I feel like I used to joke that it feels like the happiest place on the internet. I think increasingly, as the election comes up, it may get less happy, but for right now, I love Instagram. And I feel like for Kaleidoscope specifically, a lot of our client work is Instagram, and it's a wonderful place to showcase the kind of firm you would be working with. So we like to post a lot of like gardening day. It's very culture focused, but then when we do want to kind of glow up our work, it's a wonderful place to kind of humble brag on some of the stuff that we've done with and for our clients. And so, yeah, when we get time, we definitely like to shine a light on the work that we do and the company. But it's like one of those classic cases of you're always out there hustling for your clients, that you have to carve out that time to hustle for yourself. And I would just add, like, even though we've been in the digital space for so long, I'm so encouraged lately by like this whole idea of post-COVID, like isolation. There's no replacement for that in person. So like a day like today, okay, hi, we're live streaming it. Someone's home watching us on their couch or not. And you guys came in person. And I feel like that human connection is still so alive and well. And I think that weeks like this, where you actually have to get in your car, we were laughing, put on real clothes, and get out in the world and people with other people, there's something so wonderful about that. So even though we're digital, we're also very human centered. And I think that there's a lot of promise for the need for that in person moving forward. And the future is not all digital and chatbot and AI. There's still such an important place for the human connection, as you guys have shown this week.
Great. Thank you so much. I have to kind of add to that a little bit. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I am more of an introverted extrovert. I would really like to just be at home by myself, staring at a candle and doing nothing. And like literally not reading anything, not looking at anything, just looking at the candle and smelling it. So I think it's really important though to get out and talk to people and see people and engage with people in person. I love that too, but it's just so important. There's nothing that beats that. So anyway, thank you all for being here today. I do want to take some questions really quickly. I know we're running out of time, but if anyone has questions for the panel, please let me know.
Hi. So my question kind of revolves around video, and I don't want to just limit it to Lori, but especially in post-COVID and in the realm of small businesses, independent businesses, I feel like there's been an uptick in not only professional videography, and I'm a film and TV major myself, so I've done freelance stuff for businesses, small businesses, all that kind of stuff. And my question is kind of, have you guys seen a shift, not only focusing still in on professional video, but also this sort of horizontal iPhone video, local, kid in the coffee shop doing the social media work for it? And have you guys tried implementing that in some ways into how you guys help advertise whatever brands or campaigns you're working on? And have you seen any kind of crossover in that?
Well, great question. We totally need your name. And absolutely, we use iPhone all the time. We really do. We did an announcement at the Tempo grand opening, and I brought in both a small digital camera and then an iPhone, and we utilized both of those things. And I'm just a huge fan of it. And even when we're shooting larger projects, we're always aware of the vertical, and so. I think the challenge is, and I'll be honest with you, is I'm getting beat up on price from lots of people who can do really beautiful work at much lower cost. And I see my colleague Tom Petrie here. Tom and I were in business, and I was at a big studio, and the cost of entry to get into video was huge. So you really had to have a machine to get it going. And now we're operating with much smaller teams, right? But really to create a kind of experience that sometimes your clients require, it's going to still require the big budget, the bringing in the lights and the gaffer and the grips and all of that. But other times, exactly what you said, is using that iPhone, using media in really fun ways that I love watching, I love engaging with it. And I think that there's now a place for both.
Hi there. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you guys and your time and expertise. I have a question that might sort of flip the panel on its head a little. As the founder of STL.org, we're trying to take what started as the digital realm and bring it to the physical world instead of the physical to the digital. What advice might you have for us going to the future for Design Week, and then also regular things that can take these digital creations, video content, photography, and writing, and bring it to the real walls right here and celebrate it as a community?
Since that's what we help our clients do, I feel like we can pretty fluently speak to that. And sometimes, I really admire you guys because the digital comes with lots of lower costs, much less, manual labor to set up the chairs and do all the things. But I think that what we've noticed is that what are you offering? What's the ROI? If people leave these walls and go, God, I feel so inspired. Or this morning I got to catch up with Katie Collier and my old friend Susan, like there was connection. And so I think when we see on social media, sometimes it'll literally say 2,000 people RSVP'd to something or are attending, and then 500 show, or, like people are saying online, easy clicks, and then they don't actually end up getting out of their house and come into the thing. What we're noticing is that when you have something that actually has like high value add and that people leave it and go, word of mouth is huge. So when people leave this week and they're like, I want to do more. And actually I left that thinking, gosh, I would love to do these types of things more. They're just hard to put on. So I really credit you guys. And I think that one of the best ways to do it is, surveying afterwards. What did you guys like? What worked? What was a waste of your time? What did you feel like, oh man, another day, another networking event? Because I will say post-COVID, people's threshold for boring networking is like down here. So it's like, as much as people want human connection, I think their expectation, and like, if I'm going to leave my house and put some pants on, this thing better get me somewhere further in the future than I was when I came to this thing. So we've noticed that too with our clients, trick or treating events. They used to just dribble out a little candy. We're like, we got to have, like Beetlejuice walking around the center. Like we got to really spice this up. So there have been times where we've noticed post COVID that people want more and expect more. But if you continue to focus on the quality, and I think there's absolutely a space for physical and moving the digital into the physical realm. And yeah, thank you again.
Hi, everybody. Marissa Lather here with Bridge Partners. The company I work for is a growth consultancy based in Seattle. We are a fully remote company. We've got over 300 employees. St. Louis is one of our hubs. My role is the Director of Marketing and Communications. And so, kind of similar to your question, I'm curious, what are some ways that you recommend bringing a non-physical workplace into the digital or into the in real life realm? So instead of taking an actual physical space and bringing that virtually, how do you do it backwards?
You have a remote team, Lori. I don't know if you have thoughts on it. I definitely can answer again. Do you want me to?
Well, we went actually, we're not, how many people? Yeah, we're not 300, but it's a lot harder to move the Titanic, when you're a bigger team. But we definitely post-COVID went from partly virtual to virtual first. And so come in person when you have a meeting that depends on and relies on that in-person interaction. So I think similar to how I responded to Chris, it's like if you are going to try and overcome that, like all we do is Zoom, we're only knowing each other in a virtual setting, how can you bridge that or overcome that that distance or that virtual onlyness? I think it really relies on what tools work for all 300. I mean, you can't make it work for everybody, but for us, it's like we have our mechanisms that the team really loves and embraces. So like at the beginning of the week, it's that, initial connection. Like, can you find ways within even smaller teams within the 300 that still keep that human connection alive? Because I think a lot of companies have wrongly relied on like Slack and these things that, are designed to keep you all much more connected, but are still based in technology and like making all of our eyes bleed. So it's like, are there ways to actually, are you the only person in St. Louis? Yeah. That's huge. And I think that, the world is obviously becoming so much more friendly to it. So previous to COVID, it probably was even more difficult to articulate the value. Whereas now I do have clients that require FaceTime. So like, hop on a plane, you can be 30 minutes from Chicago. So we have ways where just from a much smaller team perspective, we're still trying to say, yes, we're virtual, but that doesn't mean that we've lost the importance of the relationship and the connection, because there, again, is no replacement for that. So I think punctuating your year, at least I know for me, when I've worked for fully virtual companies, I want at least a few times each year to have that, like, we're good, because you can't tell everything from Zooms and virtual. Maybe somebody's going through something, and so I think you can catch things also a lot earlier in client relationship breakdown, as well as you said the employer brand isn't so much a question, but I think equally as important, like if we never talked during the week and it was all virtual, there would be times where we would miss things. So finding those right punctuation points throughout the year that don't feel overly engineered or manufactured. Like I'm not showing up in Chicago every single week. They don't need me there every week. But knowing when those points are that you need to get in there and go like, we good? Okay. And then you have that virtual all year long or all quarter long, but then you're coming back in person. At least that's been very effective for us. Again, smaller team, but I think you're right to be asking, how do I kind of reverse we're good at virtual, but we need to make sure we're still emphasizing the physical.
So shout out to Chris Ryan. I don't think we've ever met, but I compete against this guy at the Emmys for director, and I'm just telling you, I lose. I don't even enter as director anymore. He is so good. So if you have not seen the work from Once Films, please check it out. They're totally amazing. And thank you for hosting us. Thank you for creating these opportunities to come together. I think that there's a lot of artists in St. Louis, which is kind of a funny city. I'm a transplant here, so it's not my home base always. I don't totally always feel, and it's events like this though that make you feel engaged. It makes me feel proud to be part of a place that is having conversations about design and art and how do we engage with one another as well as with our city and our space.
Can I ask one more question? This is a roundup Design Week question. So now that you experienced a little bit of this new Design Week and gone to some other things, and you obviously work in other cities, where in other cities they have this real pride of their city, and then you find out like St. Louis, like, shh, don't tell them you're from St. Louis, or I can't believe you work and live in St. Louis, all these things about our quirky city, right? So in moving forward into the future, using what tools we make through the connection through Design Week, do you guys have any thought to what we could do to make our city have the same pride as, say, a Chicago or New York, where you stay and you do this thing and it's not, oh, we're turning off the microphone over there. Yeah.
I mean, I work, well, I will say another shout out to Once. One of the clients I work with is the STL Made campaign with Greater St. Louis Inc., which is designed really to do that. And we work with Once to tell stories of the places and the people that make St. Louis great on our site, which is the STL.com. And I think just continuing to share those stories, however they meet in your individual companies, through your individual social, through our local media, through things like STL Made. One of the things that we do every year is hold 314 Day, which is we've created basically a holiday to celebrate St. Louis. And it's starting to get attention outside of St. Louis, where other cities are like, oh, well, we're going to create our own area code day. But, just continuing to kind of share those stories, as much as possible in every way we can, so that people don't just look at from outside St. Louis, don't just read the headlines and go, oh, St. Louis is full of crime. St. Louis is this, St. Louis is that. And instead they see, wow, this is a burgeoning creative community. This is a burgeoning biotech community. This has got, beautiful parks and free museums and all the things that we know, and continuing to just share that in every way we can too. So we build that reputation.
Yep. Absolutely. Yay. We love STL Made.
I think keep it not cliquish. I think that's one of the things that makes St. Louis so great is that the accessibility of it. You've got Lori, who's not from here, and some of my team members who aren't necessarily from St. Louis, but you guys are so inclusive and inviting, and it made it probably very hard when you're up to 70 programs. It's like, where do you draw the line? So I'm sure next year you'll have to rein it in to some extent, but no, up. Okay. Chris says more than 70 next year. Bigger team. Okay. But the point I think I'm making is like in other cities, I've lived in LA, Seattle, Philly, Paris, New York, like cool, but it's hard to break in. And so I think making St. Louis a place where like, if you have good ideas and you're switched on and you're engaged, like you go on the website and email someone and they actually email you back. I think not losing that as the thing grows and becomes a little bit more of a behemoth. I think that will be really important, because you never want to be like so insular that you're just talking to yourself and it's a bunch of creatives talking to creatives who they already know and have already been hanging out with for years. I think keeping that in inclusivity and expansiveness will be so key to keeping it going and making ours unique and not like a Me Too Design Week.
Thanks, Cav. Anybody else want to add anything? Any more questions? Okay, well, thank you so much. You guys are amazing.
Thank you, Team KMG, for coming in droves.
Wow. Cabany, Sarah, Amy, and Lori. Wow. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing rest.
Yes. And remember, there are still so many great events happening. Last year we had just over 25, I think. And now we have over 70 this week. so many great things to attend. So look at your schedules. Come out and join us. There's still a lot left of this week. It's only day 2.
And thank you for moderating.
Oh, you're so welcome. Happy to. Yes, you can.